Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Keith sent me a story that's going to have me talking like one of the old timers about what the whippersnappers today are up to. But when I was about to be of driving age, I took driver's ed at the local school. It's something that was provided as part of your education here in America. You would go to school and you take driver's ed in the summertime, and then once you took driver's ed, you get a driving permit, a learner's permit, assuming you're old enough to do that. And so the summer that I was 15, I took driver's ed, and then I got my permit, and then the following year when I turned 16, I got my driver's license. And the whole thing was handled through the public education system. So in more recent times, a lot of places have done away with that being done through the school system. They've privatized it. And in some states, they'll say, well, if you turn 18, you can take a test and just get a driver's license. But if you want a driver's license under the age of 18, you've got to go to driving school. And then there's driving schools that you can send your kids to, and you pay them, and they'll teach your kid presumably the same thing that you would have been taught at the public one, at the public school. But here's the problem. When you privatize something, some things will slip through the cracks because now there's a profit incentive, and some people will do things for money that they wouldn't do otherwise. So the story is from KING, which is King 5, up there in the Great Northwest. And Christine Pay wrote the story. Seattle driving school instructors sold fake passing grades to at least 2,000 people. 2,000 people are on the roads in Washington who probably shouldn't be there because they bought their passing grades for driver's ed. This all came about because the Department of Licensing performed an audit, and that audit shows some really, really bad things happening at the driving school. And in fact, some things weren't happening that should have been happening. So King 5 got a hold of these documents, and it shows that a Seattle driving school sold fake passing grades for hundreds of dollars to at least 2,000 applicants. In some cases, the fraudulent tests sold for thousands of dollars. The details are described in a Department of Licensing audit report from the state of Washington conducted by that agency's Transportation Services Fraud and Investigations Unit. And so this is a scary concept of literally thousands of people who just bought the passing grades so they can go get a driver's license. DOL auditors said that the school's instructors sold the passing grades for as much as $2,000 to $4,000. $4,000. With the time frame of the alleged violations happening between 2017 and 2021. So a 4-year period, 5 if we go inclusive, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. But that's a long time, but that's also a lot of money. And that's a bunch of people on the road who shouldn't be there. DOL investigators also found the school sold the passing grades to applicants who never took tests at all, and in some cases did not know basic driving rules. So I'm only laughing because this is obvious, but it's one of these things that's obvious to where you'd go like, who would do this? And what happens when you get caught? Because you know it's going to get unwound somewhere, and here it's getting unwound. In the report, auditors described unnamed employee complaints who claimed many of the people who were passed are illiterate with no driving skills. This is unfair to every other Washington state license holder and a potential threat to the road safety in Washington. And now, I'm not sure they mean illiterate in that they can't actually read or write, or they're illiterate in the skills of driving. But the point is that people who were employees of these companies said a potential threat to the road safety in Washington. The former owner of the school voluntarily closed his business once he had been found out, according to the Department of Licensing, who said that he no longer has a license to operate a driving school in the state. Isn't that ironic? The guy runs a license school, and he lost his license. But it's a different kind of license, I know. But it's just, work with me here. The report included surveillance photos taken by the DOL that showed applicants walking in and out of the school. but their activity did not match the reported test-taking times and dates that were submitted to the DOL by the school. So it's not just completely on the honor system in the sense that they don't just go, tell us who passed. They actually say, tell us when they took their test, tell us when they went on driving, tell us when they... And they're supposed to be documenting some of this. And apparently, when somebody raised a flag on this, the DOL decided to do a little investigation and started watching what was going on at this school. And they said what was going on was not matching the reports being filed by the school. Digging into this even more, the DOL found that a Washington state trooper in Thurston County pulled over a driver in July of 2019, or attempted to pull over a driver, turned on his lights and sirens, and multiple law enforcement officers had to pursue the driver for 10 miles. The driver did not stop. Now here's where it gets fun. The driver stated they did not know what to do when a law enforcement officer used their emergency equipment, and there was a problem there. And apparently that was somebody who had graduated from this driving school. Now, it's been a while since I took driver's ed. A couple years, okay? But I did take driver's ed. I remember. I remember the summer I took driver's ed, and I remember thinking to myself, it's summertime, but I got to get up and go to class. Now, I don't remember exactly what order the things were that we learned, but I'm pretty certain that the idea when the lights go on and there's a police car behind you, and they don't pass you, but they're directly behind you with the lights on. I'm pretty sure my instructors said that at that point you should pull over. I think. This has got to be day one stuff. And by the way, who doesn't know that before they have a driver's license? Don't you watch television? Don't you ride in cars with other people? Don't you know some people who drive and have been pulled over? Haven't you just absorbed that by living in this country for a little while, depending on how long you've been here? I mean, I would have thought, and by the way, I think, I could be wrong, I think they've got police in other countries. And I think if you're driving in another country, you might be on the other side of the road, but you're driving in another country, and law enforcement pulls up behind you and signals in some manner with flashing lights or sirens, you should pull over. Now, I could be wrong. I've not tested that theory in every country on earth. It's quite possible that in Mozambique, you don't pull over for flashing lights. I don't know. There's a lot of countries on earth. With my luck, Mozambique doesn't even exist anymore. I should have checked. The driver was somebody affiliated with the driving school and was told to retake an exam, and then was reminded more than a year later they had to retake the exam, but for whatever reason slipped through the cracks and probably did not get a top-notch or top-tier education from this driving school. Now, data from the Department of Licensing testing portal also indicated many people were provided passing test scores on days that no testing was provided. So again, and I used this phrase recently in a video, but we'd call this a trap for the stupid, where somebody does something and they do it so badly that anybody can look at it and go, hey, you did that wrong. So when you say people are passing tests and getting passing scores, they should be doing that on days that tests are actually given. I mean, in another instance in June, auditors found test examiners never left the building except to drive by themselves. The DOL test portal, however, showed 4 skills tests were conducted supposedly that day where they would take somebody out in a car and have them drive and then test them on their driving skill set. And yet the only people who left that day in cars were driving by themselves and were in fact examiners who couldn't have been examining anybody because there weren't nobody in the car with them. The owner of the driving school also submitted to the DOL a handwritten statement saying he charged $150 for knowledge tests, $400 for both knowledge and skill tests, and that when the person paid, they passed without taking a test. But that conflicts directly with the auditors who said that they found that some people had paid $2,000 to $4,000. So it sounds like somebody might be fudging the numbers here a little bit And it may be the guy who ran the school is lowering how much money he says he took. Among other things, did he declare it on his taxes as income? What do you do for a living? I take bribes. The DOL asked the owner for a list of who had purchased the passing grades, and of course, he provided them some names. It says here that he provided them at least 14 names. And the problem, of course, is that they think that 2,000 people paid. So the guy is running a school, and he's doing such poor record keeping. He doesn't keep track of who graduated or who passed tests or how. So it's strange. But it is unclear if the DOL has contacted those names that they were given of people who paid to get their test results. In the state of Washington, people under 18 who want a driver's license must take driver training classes before passing a knowledge and driving skills test. People can take these tests at a DOL location or at a privately operated driving school, but the driving school we've been talking about is now defunct. It was called the Emerald City Driving School, and it is now defunct. It is now defunct. So, as of right now, according to this story from KING Television, or King 5, there could be as many as 2,000 people on the roads of Washington driving who bought their test results. And by bought them, meaning that they didn't even take the tests. They just simply said, here's the money, give me the results, say I passed. And there could be as many as 2,000 people who did that. So it's a mess on several levels because it makes you wonder how widespread this is in the industry. Is this really just one bad school and no one else is doing this? But then number two, there's 2,000 people on the road who shouldn't be driving. You know, that's a serious problem. That is a safety concern. And so that's a problem. And this gets us back to the whole thing of, back when they started changing the way people get licensed. The state of Michigan has done a whole bunch of stuff, and many states have, where they've changed how licenses are given. And they have, for instance, a graduated license. So when you first get your driver's license at 16, they treat you like you're on a form of probation. So if you get a ticket in the first year of driving, it has a different impact on you than if you get a ticket when you're 25 years old and been driving for 9 years. Okay? And that makes sense because they pointed out that a lot of accidents are caused by young drivers without much experience. And so they want to really watch that group carefully until they get more experience and get out of that group of being 16 years old, which happens when you turn 17. So they have these graduated licenses. They've got all these different things. They've also changed rules on drunk driving. But they've also, like I said, most places have done away with the driver's education being conducted by the public school systems, at least in Michigan. I've heard of other states who've done this too. And that to me is a problem because I've spoken to people who are parents who say, yeah, I've got a teenager and I need them to take these classes. And it turns out that there is a school, but it's not close to where I live. It's way over there. And, or it's expensive or it's not convenient. And I've also heard people say that when they talk to their kids about what they're doing in these classes, it doesn't sound like the same thing we were doing when we were taking our classes through the public school system. So it makes me wonder. So I've always been skeptical of this move to privatize the driver's education. And I'm not saying this proves that my skepticism is well-founded. I'm simply saying I kind of expected this to happen sooner or later somewhere. So there you go. But this is only one school that we know of, one school. It is now defunct. So it's gone out of business. But there apparently are about 2,000 people on the roads of Washington and elsewhere, but having gotten themselves Washington driver's licenses, and they got it by buying test results, which of course is not how you're supposed to do that. So that's not good. So Keith, thank you for sending it. And Christine Pay wrote it for King 5. Seattle driving school instructor sold passing grades to at least 2,000 people. And yes, that's a problem. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Scientists have discovered that Ireland is slowly sinking beneath the North Sea. In time, nothing will be floating above the surface of the water. Well, except maybe cork.